I did not feel like recording a video today, but that is part of the practice. You got to show up whether you feel like it or not. And, it's that's the hard part. We talk a lot about this notion of motivation, feeling motivated to do things, and all of the top performers in their respective fields are very motivated to accomplish their given task. But that's not always the case. And it's this weird sort of dichotomy, right? Where the people who are most successful in life are the ones that give advice on how to be successful, the ones that are most trusted, yet they are the lowest percent of people who actually make it, who actually achieve any form of success, which makes it seem like they would actually be the last people who'd be qualified to tell you, in a manner of speaking, because, who's really invisible are all the people that are struggling along the way to make something of themselves, to achieve some level of success. And, if you spend enough time in any sort of field, like acting, we'll say. I love how every time I mention these things, I say acting like it's a new thing, but it's the only thing I ever talk about. It's acting, paintball, and like 2 other things. But if you spend enough time in the acting world, you realize, because you'll be surrounded by a bunch of people who are super talented, but have not made it. It's like, why haven't they made it? Why are certain individuals chosen to be in certain positions while others who are clearly qualified to be in those spots aren't chosen? It's because while skill is somewhat of a factor, it's not the primary one. I would say the 2 are luck and timing. And you've heard this before. It's just, it's difficult to hear all the time. The regular old advice is you just got to stay motivated. You got to be disciplined, which that part I agree with. And you got to keep pushing no matter what. It's the no matter what part that kind of bothers me, because there's a lot of things you'll find that probably aren't worth it. And I talked about this a little bit in my last video, where you want to sort of figure out the thing that you don't like so that you can check it off the list and then go for the things that you do like. So going along that same thread, I think that you shouldn't adopt this mentality of I'm going to do it no matter what, unless, and this will sound cliche as well, unless you really love it. And how do you know if you really love something? Well, you've tried it so many times that you end up hating it and you want to get rid of it. You want to cast it out of your life. But then for whatever reason, it keeps coming back. You keep having this sensation of when you do other things, you're like, oh man, what if I was doing that thing right now? What if I had practiced acting, or I should say, what if I had auditioned for 4 years at this amount? Where would I be at this point in time? I mean, in reality, you could have gotten nowhere. Like, you could have been a total waste of time. But another perspective, you could have enjoyed those 4 years doing something that you felt fulfilling, and at the very least, you could go to this moment and say, well, I know I've done it for 4 years. It's not working out. And maybe I need to re-strategize how I go about this thing. And I realize that's a bit of an aside from the original point, which was motivation, right? So what I want to say, the thesis for this video, is that motivation is not something that you want as your driving force in whatever it is that you're doing. At least I don't want that for myself. And the reason being is there are lots of times, I'm blessed to have lots of moments where I'm incredibly motivated. I can perfectly visualize the target of where I want to be. I can feel all the emotions. And there's a caveat to that as well. Sometimes if you experience or imagine the feeling too much, you actually accomplish it, but that's another issue. What I'm saying is I'm blessed to have that feeling many times, but the real issue arises when I don't. So what do you do when you don't feel like doing it? Well, you give up. you don't care. It's not for you anymore. There's all sorts of ways you can rationalize why that is actually not something that you want to work on anymore. And, they might be legit. You could have an illness in the family that's taken a lot of your attention away. You could have a financial crisis happening to you. And so you don't have the flexibility to spend more time sort of going down that path, taking measured risks as you could before. So you throw it to the wayside. But let's say the only thing that's holding you back is just not feeling like doing it. Okay, well, there is a very simple solution to that. Well, I shouldn't say simple solution. There are simple steps that lead to a complex solution, as long as you employ everything. And my 2 cents on that are, first off, where do you want to be? Like, what is the goal ultimately? What do you think sounds worthy? And you can pick whatever you want. I mean, you only live once, as far as we know. I don't know what happens after this. Like, I may not remember anything, or I get to look back on it. And in either case, it's like you might as well spend your time enjoying that stuff. I mean, why do anything else? If you really think about it. So, figure out what that one thing is that matters most to you. Just do that thing, okay? Now that sounds really easy and cavalier. That's my word of the week. But that circles back to, try a bunch of things, process of elimination. Okay, so you've now decided what is the thing you want to do, right? Once you decide that thing, might seem a little overwhelming, all right? Like if your dream is to be a professional dancer or a performer for Cirque du Soleil, it's kind of a tall order, right? Like you have to be physically fit, you have to have a certain expertise, specialty in certain areas of gymnastics or juggling or whatever skill that fits into the particular umbrella of that show. And don't even get me started on whether or not that show is casting for your unique ability anyway. I mean, you can't really predict that. But what if I told you that striving for that thing is actually not as overwhelming as you might think, or I might be making it sound? Because really all you have to do at the end of the day is just a couple things, all right? And the first thing is practice. Every day, like in the most boring sense you could imagine, in the most repetitive, mindless manner, you have to practice. Okay, I used kind of some negative adjectives there. Probably should course correct that a little bit. What I mean is, you have to be comfortable doing really monotonous, routine tasks that most people would be like, you're absolutely insane for doing that thing. I do it myself, okay? I can give you a perfect example. It's not Cirque du Soleil. Though, one point you could kind of argue it was. But I'll try to make a parallel analogy here. You've got esports and you've got free running. And both of these things really intertwine themselves. And stay with me. This will come back to the big picture of why this is the simplest and probably the most important step. Okay? So when I was doing esports, coaching it, practicing some of the fundamental mechanics that are important for being a good, specifically a first-person shooter player, I did a lot of aim training, okay? And it made a tremendous difference with my aim. But it was not exciting in any way. If you go on YouTube right now and look something up along the lines of how to improve your aim, how to fix your aim, one simple step to do all this, those videos will probably have some valuable content in them. But the reality is, the content they're telling you doesn't just happen after one session or after you watch the video. You have to do what they're saying over and over and over and over again, sometimes for hours, and definitely for days to weeks to months. Like you have to spend an absurd amount of time doing these things. At least for me, I had to, because some people, they can progress faster than others. from my personal experience, I did not see a substantially permanent improvement. I mean permanent in the sense that I could wake up in the morning, not warm up, and my aim is just automatically better, okay? That's what I mean by permanent. I did not see a permanent improvement until I had done about 3 months of aim training every single day with the same routine for, I think it was at least 30 minutes. But sometimes I would condition, right? So I would do the aim training routine, but I would do the exercises for maybe 6 or 7 sets, right? So to use a workout analogy, you're doing 6 or 7 sets of 10 incline bench press, yeah? So for me, I would be doing 3 or 4 sets of tracking. I would do 3 or 4 sets of tracing or trying to snap between targets. And stuff is not that fun. I mean, it's kind of fun, like it's satisfying. It feels like you're playing a game, but it's not the same as actually playing the game with the excitement, all that stuff, okay? Now, what I said before is I was gonna make a parallel between this and free running, okay? So one of the most fundamental skills in free running, and hopefully this analogy makes a little bit more sense since it relates to real life. Not everyone who watches this is a gamer, I imagine. One of the most fundamental skills is the precision jump, okay? And what you have to do for precision jump is very basic. I mean, there's a lot that goes into the jump itself, but when you look at it, it's simple. You're just starting from one place without any run or anything like that, generating energy with your arms and jumping to the next point, all right? Ideally, you're trying to land on something very precise like a rail or a ledge without losing your balance, falling, anything like that. Pretty simple concept, okay? Very high skill ceiling when it comes to execution because, you know, some of these guys are jumping 8, 9, 10, 11 feet without any run up or momentum, and they're landing on the tiniest, concrete slabs or metal rails. It's just absolutely absurd. Still a simple movement, but it's a very high skill ceiling, like I said. So how do you get good at that? You just got to do it over and over again, all right? When's the last time a noob has ever asked me to do a precision jump? Never, okay? Unless you're someone who actually trains parkour and free running, and you're like, oh, I have an appreciation for this very specific thing. Then, yeah, maybe they'll ask. But just someone on the street is not gonna ask me to do, they're gonna say, can you do a backflip? I could do the sickest combo. Look, something that would get me instantly hired by Cirque du Soleil, and a normal person would see that and be like, I don't know what just happened, but can you do a backflip? That's usually how it goes. So it's not a fun or exciting thing, is what I'm trying to say. You just have to take the most boring tasks, the most uninteresting things. I should qualify that with uninteresting to like the general public. What I'm trying to say is getting good at things is not glamorous. You just want to take those basic skills and execute them every day. And here's the crucial part. Get good sleep, okay? Why? Because whenever your brain takes on a new task, it's not only trying to acclimate itself to the new movements, but it has to imprint them, like solidify them. It's this symbiotic relationship between mind and body. I'm not a science guy, so I don't know all the fancy terms to quite articulate this in the right way, but you need to get your sleep in order to solidify these things that you're practicing. And it doesn't matter if you're doing parkour, doesn't matter if you're doing esports, boxing, fencing, paintball, acting, whatever. The more you prioritize getting your sleep, the faster you'll improve at these things. And after you reach a certain point of improvement, you will start to innovate. Like, it's really incredible because when you're learning something, your brain has to allocate so much of its resources to doing the thing and like figuring out what you don't know and things like that. It's kind of overwhelming. You know, it's getting shocked in a way by the experience. But as you get better and better, a lot of that information gets allocated to the subconscious, to your muscle memory, right? And so that frees up space. Well, what does that space get used up for? Innovation. Reconceptualizing that skill that you just learned, that you've been practicing. So if you're trying to get good at something and you're like, oh man, this is like really lame. If this feels like a waste of time, probably isn't. Well, actually, it might be. It depends what you're doing. I don't know. Maybe leave a comment first and ask me what it is you're doing. But what were we talking about? Motivation. Right, yeah, this is all related. So how do you do these boring things over and over and over again? Like them and do them no matter what. Right? Have a schedule. Okay, I know some people, they don't like schedules. I'm not a schedule person. I like to be more spontaneous. Okay, get over yourself. Make a schedule. Figure out a certain time that works for you where you're gonna do this thing no matter what, and do it, okay? Because I'm doing it right now. I'm recording this bloody video where I'm talking absolute nonsense, and you know, I'm getting better at talking to the camera, whether it sounds good or not. Also, for those of you who've made it to this point, let me know in the comments, because I really commend you and respect you for listening to this, this brain vomit, all right? Cool, see you in the next one. Have a great week.